Hi, Caleb. Thank you for joining me. I'd love to start with just understanding a little bit about your background at Pentara and how you got into statistics.
So I think to really get into where my love for statistics started, I have to go all the way back to high school. I remember my senior year of high school, I took AP statistics, and my friends thought I was crazy because I loved doing my statistics homework. I loved just looking at data and really started loving looking at the data to try to learn the real story of what was happening, whether it was just looking at people's heights, looking at whatever data set was put in front of me. I loved learning what was really going on in the data. I then was able to go to Brigham Young University and study statistics, got my bachelor's and master's degrees there, and that love just continued to grow. And then was able to start working at Pentara just after I graduated from BYU and have been here ever since. And that love for just diving into the data, in this case, learning about clinical trials, learning about different treatments that are available for Alzheimer's, among other disease areas, has just been a joy for me. I think it's a lot of fun.
Well, it's impressive, and the work that you do is so meaningful and important. So, congratulations on having a career that brings meaning and value to people's lives. And I hear that you have an upcoming session at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. Uh, I understand that you're going to be sharing with us information on the percent slowing in Alzheimer's disease across stages. And so I have up in front of me here the title of your presentation. It's a mouthful here. So, breaking down the influences of placebo progression and percent slowing on the observed treatment differences in Alzheimer's disease clinical trials for populations in different disease stages. That's a lot. So, are you going to be presenting as a poster at the conference? And do you know what day that I can find you? First of all.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a poster, and I will be there for the Sunday session.
Okay, awesome. So I'm assuming that there's going to be lots of great information there, but I'd also like to I just have a few questions ahead of time if I can, so I can understand a little bit more about it, and hopefully others can get their interest piqued in attending. So I think the first thing that I really want to learn more about is clinical trials. Their goal or their aim is to show how a treatment works, but in a progressive disease like Alzheimer's, assessing that efficacy could really be tricky. So, what's a common way that we might misinterpret treatment effects when looking across the different stages of Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, I think one of the key challenges in evaluating efficacy across populations in Alzheimer's disease clinical trials stems from the differing rates of disease progression at the various stages of the disease. Patients in the early stages of Alzheimer's typically exhibit a slower rate of decline, which accelerates as they transition to what we would call the mild and moderate phases of Alzheimer's. Because all currently approved treatments and most of the treatments that are being researched aim to slow progression rather than reverse it, this variation in the natural disease trajectory can complicate interpretation of treatment effects. To illustrate this with data, we analyzed placebo group data from the Clarity AD trial of lecanemab, which is their phase 3 trial working in early AD patients, alongside available ADCS data sets, which have mild to moderate patients, focusing specifically on the ADAS-Cog, which is a widely used cognitive endpoint in Alzheimer's trials for those that aren't familiar. Our findings showed that even when a treatment slows the disease at the same rate in early and moderate populations, the raw difference in change scores can differ dramatically by almost double when you're just comparing the active to the placebo arm. This disparity could easily be misinterpreted, leading to the impression that a lot of these treatments that work in the moderate stage of Alzheimer's are more effective than those that are working in the early stage of Alzheimer's, when in fact, relatively to how much the placebo is progressing, the treatment effects are equivalent. To add a personal note to this as well on how Alzheimer's progresses, I saw this in the life of my grandfather, who he suffered for many years from dementia and Alzheimer's. He I remember as a family, we weren't quite sure what was happening at first. We saw him slowly start to lose some of his cognitive functionality, some of his memory started to slip, and he was a very intelligent person, so it was weird to see that happen. And then over time, it started progressing faster and faster until it got to the point where he couldn't remember his family, he couldn't do almost anything for himself, and he had to have constant care, which was hard to see, which is one of the reasons that I love working in this field.
Yeah, that is such an impactful story. Thank you, Caleb. My grandfather passed away from Alzheimer's disease as well, and I know similar, the progression and the changes over time to see happen to someone. And I think one of the hard things that we've faced up until now is a lot of people are, I don't know if nervous, anxious is the right word to even get tested, right? They might start to see signs of decline, but so many people are resistant to go, take the tests and understand if they're having, measurable and significant decline. And I really do feel that what you're doing is so important because identifying treatments that can slow the progression early will hopefully make the difference for people wanting to know sooner than later, as opposed to waiting until they are at the point where they really do need a lot of support and are no longer able to maintain that independent living. So, you propose using percentage slowing to interpret your treatment effects. So, how will that novel metric provide a clearer, more accurate understanding of that treatment's true impact on the disease progression? So, really help me understand what's that percentage slowing gonna show us on each of these different treatments.
Yeah, so a central goal in Alzheimer's research, as it should be, is to help individuals maintain their independence and functional abilities for as long as possible, rather than relying on point differences on clinical scales like the 8S-COG, which may be difficult to interpret for non-clinicians and involves most everyone. Reporting percent slowing of disease progression offers a more intuitive and meaningful measurement of the treatment effect. This approach not only improves accessibility, but also allows for more valid comparisons across the different stages of the disease, which connects to what we were talking about earlier, where if we're comparing how well a treatment works across and for an early patient compared to a moderate patient, the percent slowing allows that to be more comparable to each other because of the different rates of progression. This is particularly important as slowing progression in the early stages is critical when individuals are often still highly functional and motivated to preserve their independence for as long as possible. They can still do a lot of things in their life, and we want to help people maintain their independence and maintain all the things that they love to do for as long as possible while they fight this disease.
So would that be like trying to really, you're hearing a lot right now in the news about health span. So would that be basically trying to help people maximize their health span to more closely match their lifespan? Is that kind of the point you're getting at in here?
Yeah, I would say that's exactly right.
Awesome.
Helping people enjoy their life and maintain their health as long as possible before, and we definitely don't want your health span, your lifespan to be widely different.
And I'm assuming that that would really show up differently if someone starts to have symptomology in their 60s versus in their 80s. That this would be a really impactful thing, this percentage slowing.
Absolutely. If people are starting to show symptoms in their 60s and we can identify the disease early, and then we have these effective treatments that work in early stages of the disease, then you can maintain their independence and their abilities for much longer.
Outstanding. This is really exciting research. Your research also suggests that we might be undervaluing some treatments that significantly improve the lives of those in early stage Alzheimer's. So, what's the most crucial takeaway from your work that could change how a drug developer or a clinician interprets those treatment effects?
When evaluating outcomes from a clinical trial in any progressive disease, I would say it is essential to interpret the point differences that we're seeing between an active arm and a placebo on any scale in the context of the natural progression of the disease that you observe in the placebo arm. Relying only on absolute differences can overemphasize the effects in a more rapidly progressing stage of the disease. By contrast, expressing treatment effects as percent slowing offers a more consistent and meaningful metric. It accounts for differences that we see in the baseline progression, uh, which is coming from what disease stage they're in, and provides a clearer understanding of how effectively a treatment slows disease progression, regardless of what disease stage a patient may be in.
So, Caleb, as you're talking about this, I'm realizing that we have other diseases out there that also have this, variable progression and different staging over time. So, I'm assuming that this statistical research and information would be applicable for someone who's not, necessarily studying Alzheimer's, but might be interested in, researching another condition with a similar thing. So, whether I'm into Alzheimer's research or I'm, just looking at this idea of progression and change over time, how do I come find you at the conference? And if I had a question ahead of time that I was going to be a head scratcher and you needed some time to research a little bit ahead, how do I get a hold of you?
For anyone who'd like to discuss this further, I'll be at the Sunday poster session at AAIC. I would love to see anyone there and discuss whether it be about Alzheimer's in specific or any other disease that is progressive, because I think, as you stated, that this is applicable for any disease that is progressive. Also, if you have any questions that you would like me to be able to answer really thoroughly, feel free to connect with me through LinkedIn, and then we can discuss those questions further once at the conference.
Awesome. Thanks, Caleb. I really appreciate your time. It's been great connecting with you today, and I look forward to your presentation and getting to learn more about your research.